Welcome back to another episode of Pardon Our Promotion. I'm Scott Johnson. This is
Bob Misavage.
How you doing today, Bob?
Very well, thank you.
I'm excited for today's show. We kind of got a lot to talk about, I feel like.
Yeah, we're just barely. This is episode 3, and there's just so much that we can do. I mean, we had notes all over the place, and we've been doing it for, again, 5 decades between the two of us. He's been doing it for 4.5 decades, me, just a few days.
You wanted to share something about why we do what we do and what we're doing here.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about in episode 1 that, sports from the beginning of time until about the mid-'70s was all about sports, period. There wasn't a lot of entertainment being done in the sports stadiums across the country or across the world. And then all of a sudden it started getting big. And it really, we'll get into this in another time, but it really kind of started when cable TV started, which is, again, a little bit before your time, Mr. Johnson. But in 1978, there was only a couple of channels that you could dial into. And sports was actually only on at 10 o'clock, and I'm in Central Time, at 10 o'clock at night. At 10:20, you had sports for like 4 minutes, in the sport. And it was a little bit of local. I'm from Minnesota, Wisconsin, so you got the Bucks game, whatever happened last night or whatever. And that was it. And then, of course, cable TV came in, and Anchorman 2 was really great to kind of show that evolution. Did you ever see that show?
I did, yeah.
Remember when they got that 24-hour news and they're like, what do we do now?
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of what ESPN, in a way, how are we going to fill 24 hours of sports programming? And they kind of figured it out on the fly, in a way. And of course, it's evolved to where we are now. But I have an article that was written in New York Times in 2006 that really spoke to me a few years back. So I'm going to quote it. The title of the article is, "Oh yeah, there's a ball game too." And it starts at, and I'm going to take 3 little snippets out of the article, Scott. The multimillionaires on the field, otherwise known as baseball players, were almost a distraction amid all of this activity, as fans preoccupied with prime rib, panini, and Pinot could barely spare a hand to clap. Competition and athleticism may occupy center stage in modern sports coliseums, but they no longer are necessarily the only magnet for fans. Now, the second little snippet I took out was this one, which is really important. The Braves have learned the hard way that a winning ball club does not necessarily equal a winning balance sheet. The Braves won an unparalleled 14 consecutive division titles through 2005, yet their attendance fell by 1.3 million people, or a third, from 97 to 04. So obviously, great sports teams, fans just slowly going away because there was that competition for the entertainment dollar, and the fans grew apathetic, right? Yeah. So it goes on and says, we are a society that craves entertainment, and a game might not do it anymore on its own. There aren't as many true fans as there used to be, so teams are turning games into events. We've been doing it for years and helping teams do that, and that's kind of why this podcast is started and why we're continuing to dive into certain parts of nuances of your operations and how we can help you. So
that's interesting. When did that article come out again?
2006.
So that's a long time ago.
So what is that? 78, 88, 98, almost 30 years after ESPN showed up.
And, Major League Baseball, still at the pro level, is not following this theory, really.
It kind of is, in a way. They're not doing it maybe on their on-field presentation as much, because they do really respect the sanctity of the baseball game. But, when this came out, it was kind of when Turner Field was changing over and they're starting to add new cool gathering areas, new food and everything else. And, of course, they built their new ballpark on the north side of Atlanta, and that thing is just an entertainment mecca. Right. And so they did it more on the facility side, but there's just, obviously anybody that's gone to a Major League Baseball game today, there's just a lot to do. And every once in a while you look at the game, right?
The story about how the Braves became so popular in the nation, it really intrigued me, the way that with TBS and because the advent of cable and there was only, everyone in this region got TBS, and it was a huge region.
Right.
Whereas now it's kind of, smaller, a little bit market smaller. But back then,
That's true.
everyone got the Braves.
Goodness gracious, I grew up watching WGN and the Cubs, and I knew all those players because they were able to broadcast on that all the time. Their day games.
Pretty crazy. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's interesting. I think I'm looking forward to the day where Major League Baseball kind of more at the pro level supports what the minor leagues are currently doing with their show. And I think it's got to happen at some point. They got to keep fans. And this was in 2006, they said this. So
yeah, well, they're experimenting, all the sports really, they're experimenting how to compact the game a little bit, the pitch clocks and, speed the game up, because of our attention spans, we probably have already lost like half of our viewers just because we're rambling on right now. I mean, the attention span of modern America is just not what it used to be.
Well, point taken. Let's get on with it. So I also today want to talk a little bit about technology and how it relates to promotions and execution and things like that. So specifically, the equipment, the control room setup, what is needed to give your fans the best possible experience, whether they're locally in-house on your video board or tuning into your broadcast. To do that, I'm going to bring in Matt Baker. He's Visual Verge General Manager. He's the guy I go to with all my technology issues. He probably gets annoyed with it, but Matt, how you doing?
Hey guys, it's good to see you guys here virtually. We've been talking our company about doing a podcast for many years to give our knowledge and talk through stuff, and we finally wrangled that guy Bob into sitting down and taking some time and do this. And I'm excited the future of this, and excited to talk to you guys today.
Yeah. How do we look? I mean, which one looks better, or more handsome, more wise?
Well, there's clearly one that looks older.
Well said. So Matt, talk to us a little bit about what we're talking about here. What does the setup look like? What are we talking about the video board versus the broadcast? What is the equipment? Share with us a little bit about.
Yeah, well, Bob and I talk about this a lot. Just the evolution of a control room over even 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. The big thing we used to push to our clients is build big control rooms and a lot of different people in those rooms and a lot of different operators. Well, with technology and consolidating a lot of the different features and a lot of different things that certain pieces of equipment can do, where those rooms are scaling down, but there's still some very vital positions, very vital pieces of equipment that are important to any kind of control room.
They're scaling down in size, but not in capabilities are actually going up, but scaling down in like size and how many operators you need, right?
Yeah, exactly. You used to walk into a rack IT room, where there's all the racks and stuff like that, and there would be 5 or 6 racks because the equipment was so big. Now that's down to maybe 1 or 2, but as you just mentioned, the capabilities and what that technology can do, and as well as the flexibility to grow with that technology, has also enhanced. There's always, the most important roles. There's always this certain different piece of equipment, like for your in-house show, it's having a video board operator and a equipment that runs your video board and breaks it out and does the zoning of the video board. We talk a lot of time about the upstream, downstream of the show and the simulcasting and the dual show.
Like the split show.
What's the word? Split show. There you go. There's the word we always talk.
We call it split show. There's other vernacular I'm sure people use.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is those equipment, a lot of the times in the past they were separated, but now they have ways where you can integrate them both together, which allows for a much better workflow in your show. And like we said, a lot less equipment. So, it always starts with how do we acquire those cameras? And what are we doing to acquire those cameras? whether it's the first base camera, high home camera, center field camera. With today's technology, you can use one cable to acquire all those cameras and bring them into multiple different pieces of equipment, essentially.
Yeah. So to elaborate a little bit, not even 5-6 years ago, definitely longer than that, it used to be a single connection. I have a camera, I have a switcher or downstream, and I have to connect it, hardwire, connect that all the way through the infrastructure of a stadium into a switcher or a routing switcher. And now what Matt's pointing out is because it's all digitized, even though there was an HD signal 10 years ago, they were still going over a single cable, but now it's been digitized and it runs over IP. So yeah, one Cat6 cable or connection or fiber connection, and that camera feed can go many places.
Oh, that's interesting. So is the quality also increasing with the changes? Meaning, are we getting better pictures out of this current, the one feed rather than having all the wires and cables everywhere?
Yeah, and I would say the main thing is you're now able to get many more angles in your show because like you're very limited to, I ran this cable, I have to run this cable all the way up to the control room in order to make this happen. Now, because it's like as Bob said, digitized, you can have your cameras on a network, and as long as you can get to your network and you plug your camera in, you can add that angle to your show. So adding extra camera angles inside your dugouts, looking different camera angles like PTZs, play-by-play, or having that camera angle that's in a green screen room that we can go to live during a game. Rather than back in the day, you'd shoot your green screen content and then you can add to your show. Well, in the world of minor league baseball, things are so fluid, things are happening. You have your mayor shows up to the game and you want to get something in the second inning. Well, we can capture that now because you can bring that angle into your show by just going right to your green screen room. So that's the main thing. We all know, like, obviously going from SD standard definition to high definition is that there, and now we got 4K, 8K, 16K. That's always going to keep going. But the thing that I've seen a lot is the ability to add more angles to your show.
Yeah. And I'd like to interject one thing on that, because you did mention about the quality and stuff. It really is a function of now. It used to be a function of your camera and the connection, and now it's more of a functionality of bandwidth. And some of these, as there's two things I want to point out. As we're renovating, sometimes we're opening new stadiums and helping teams open. We're putting all the AV tech in them, and sometimes we're renovating. And one of their big challenges is that network backbone and infrastructure. And some of these older stadiums don't have fiber everywhere. And of course, higher quality camera means higher quality infrastructure as far as the IT goes. And the other weird idiosyncrasy, as Matt mentioned earlier, is that evolving technology. Again, we're planning some new ballparks coming down the line here, and some of the ownership and management will say, "Oh, what kind of cameras are we getting?" And I say, I have no idea because it changes so fast. So really what we want to do is set aside a budget amount because we want to get the latest, greatest about right before kind of they need it, rather than, hey, let's buy a camera today, but we're opening in 18 months. No, we're going to buy the camera 17 months from now because it's going to have much better capabilities. But the infrastructure is really going to dictate how the transmission rates.
So that actually raises an interesting question in my mind. And Matt, you might be able to answer this. Where is the technology going? Bob just talked about cameras, and we obviously know, the new iPhone just came out, it's 48 megapixels. So we obviously know that, that stuff's always increasing. But the base technology, the Cat5 cable, is that here for a long time, or do you think that's going to evolve also?
You're seeing more ways wirelessly to bring in different cameras, as well as, bringing different signals and different cameras, even across, not just locally to your network, but across the web with very low latency. It's being done right now. So you can take your essentially your cell phone camera and bring it into your show as to act as a wireless camera. I mean, that technology is here now, and it's continued to grow and continue to grow. So I see wireless, and not just wireless point to point, but wireless on your network, and connection across webs is continuing to grow, and people thinking about how can I creatively, what can I do with a camera that's over there wirelessly or across the web? How do I merge different shows together by doing that? Yeah. That's where I see kind of the future, and instead of just having one cable, there's going to be stuff done wirelessly or through the cloud.
Sure.
What's latency?
A lot more. Well, this is latency. So essentially, if latency is, if I say a sentence to you or say a word to you, how long does it take the viewer to see that? So if I'm capturing let's say a national anthem singer, and I want to send that to the board, you don't want to capture that national anthem singer and her talking and her lips not matching what's on the video board. So you want what we call a zero delay, zero latency signal, so that those are in sync. Because what latency essentially is the delay from the camera, what it's capturing, to the stream, essentially. So when I was skipping over an example of what a national anthem singer could be saying, so that's essentially what latency is.
So we put a system into my church, right? And, it's going through YouTube and everything else. There's 30 to 40 seconds of latency from the time it gets shot until the time a viewer, some remote viewer is watching that church service. And that's okay for a church service because they're not in church, right? And they're seeing it from their home. But of course, in a stadium environment, and you have a video board right there in front of everybody, that has to be almost negligible.
Right,
yeah.
One of the coolest,
and especially for your wireless camera, which is one of the more crucial cameras to any show, because you get right up on the fan, right up on the national anthem singer, a lot better than you can with a camera that's stuck in a camera well or up at high home.
Interesting. One of the, you mentioned the cell phone camera, and I've got a little experience with that. I did a promotion or an element a couple of years ago, right when this technology came out, may have been last year. And I literally had the on-field host start with his own cell phone like he was taking a selfie, but we took it to the video board, and he started in the control room and did his whole welcome, walking down through the control room press box, down through the suites, onto the field, and eventually got to home plate for the crowd. It was just a cool little element, show behind the scenes a little bit, gave it a more personal feel. And I think that technology is amazing. So I think the opportunity to, rope the technology in with the promotion is endless.
I agree. We toyed around, Scott, with fan cams.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of teams have fan cameras, and they really, if you're out there, don't get rid of that, because you, as a team that runs a fan camera, you have control over what that shot is, right? Yep. And the entertainment aspect of that shot. So that's something that's invaluable. But then how much power do we give the fans? How many cell phone cameras do we want to take to the video board? It's something that's going to evolve, almost like, of course, now social media can post your video, TikToks and everything, and they take it to the video board, or at least the side video boards. So there might be some aspect of that grows as this technology evolves.
Yeah. Really exciting stuff. Matt, we appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us. Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm excited that we're doing this podcast, and I can't wait to see what other topics you guys are going to talk about.
Yeah, me too. Bob and I are excited. Well, guys, until next time, remember, send in your comments, questions, anything you want to know about. We love to talk to you. We love to have what we say relevant instead of us just rambling on constantly. But until next time, it's all about your fans. Have a good night, guys.
See ya.